Futurist Jim Carroll from the home broadcast studio. Why do companies fail? Hubris, arrogance, invincibility. Organizations fail because they fail to keep up with the trends which are disrupting their industry. They fail to keep up with all of the change that is occurring around them, and they tend to believe that they're always going to be in the market that they're in today. And then they wake up one day and realize, whoops, that did not happen. They realize the world has changed. Over the last several days, I've been involved in watching what is happening with my Twitter feed. Someone made a comment about Skype and how is it that Skype has failed to capitalize on the opportunity of working at home when other organizations like Zoom have rocketed to the absolute top of the online communications game. Skype has been with us for a long time, but are you talking about Skype? Is Skype on your radar as one of the leading organizations that is taking you into this new connected world? Of course they aren't. When I saw this tweet about Skype, I made a comment back and I said, here's what happened to them. They have suffered from the sins of arrogance. They never responded to email. They didn't listen to their customers. They never responded to tweets with product suggestions. They never presumed that their customers might have different ideas on where the product could go. They suffered from arrogance, complacency, hubris, first mover ego. They truly became the research in motion, the BlackBerry of this new digital age when organizations like Zoom are rocketing to the top of the global communications empire. I wrote a post years ago called How Do Smart Companies Do Really Stupid Things? And I entitled it Moto Fail. And it was based on a talk I did for Motorola's global executive and R&D team. Way back in 2006, Motorola brought me in to talk about the future of communications. I went in and I spoke about internet telephony. I talked about what was happening with disruptive trends. I talked about the fact that Apple might be bringing out an iPhone. I talked about the fact that their world in which they believed that everybody would always buy a Razr because it was a really cool cell phone might not last. And you know what I witnessed? I witnessed an organization that was stuck with the sin of complacency, believing that everybody's always going to want to buy a Razr. And look what happened to Motorola. They became one of the best examples of how to be a stunning failure in a fast-moving market. I ended up writing about them in some of my daily inspirational quotes. I wrote one day that, look, your complacency is going to kill you. It's going to be the sin which is going to cause you to lose your opportunities in the future. What is it that organizations like Motorola and others do? Why do smart companies do really stupid things? It's good to go through the list to get a sense of the mistakes that they make. And you need to ask yourself, are these the mistakes that I'm making as I'm trying to go forward in the future? What happens is, number one, a belief in their incumbency. They've been successful for so long that they do not fear any threat. They sort of have an invincibility syndrome, a belief that nothing will ever come along that will challenge their success. Arrogance and hubris, particularly at the CEO level. I've seen a lot of CEOs who have a staggering belief that their market, their industry, their market share is always going to survive in the future, and the products that they sell are always going to be the greatest products that customers will always want. We know that does not happen. They simply believe they've got everything right with their formula. We know that's not the case with what goes on. I've seen a lot of organizations which make stupid mistakes because they have a failed team, a culture that does not promote shared goals, in which each and every division works on their own without a shared goal in mind, promoting absolutely massive dysfunction throughout the organization and missed collective opportunity with everything they do, a failure to realize and adapt to the pace of change in their market. My tagline is, the future belongs to those who are fast, and that is certainly what is enveloping us in this post-pandemic economy. Today, simply put, too many organizations are structured for slow in the era of fast, an inability to recognize that maybe their competitors are doing a better job than they are. They don't like to acknowledge their competitors' success. One of the weird things about my job is I go into a lot of organizations and they ask me to give them a real crystal clear version of where they are going in their future. But then they say to me, please don't talk about our competitors because we don't want to scare our people. If you cannot acknowledge your competitor's success, you are doomed to fail because you will not be learning from what your competitors are doing. These are the sins of failure. Denial runs rampant, an inability to confront the truth of what you are faced with, a belief that what you've got is fantastic when it's not, an inability to confront the reality that perhaps your product is failing and that you need some drastic surgical action to reinvent yourself, your opportunity, and your future. These are the sins of failure, and they are all too common for far too many organizations. And it's the type of thing that has happened to Skype, where nobody's thinking about them in the era of Zoom supremacy. An inadequate trends radar, an inability to watch the important signs, trends, and developments that will shape the future of their industry. These are the things that happen to organizations which hold them back from their future. I want you to think about these issues, and I want you to look at your own organization and examine which of these issues of arrogance and hubris and infallibility are you suffering from, and how do you need to challenge those? Because we are now in a world in which trends, disruption, and industries are changing at an absolutely furious pace. Nobody's talking about Skype. Everybody's talking about Zoom. They seem to be becoming another one of the BlackBerries, the Research in Motions, the Motorolas of this new digital age. And this is happening in so many different industries. Think about where you're being disrupted and what you need to do to deal with the reality of what is occurring.